SpaceX's newest cargo Dragon 2 spacecraft, C-211, has launched atop a Falcon 9 rocket at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday, November 26 from Launch Complex 39A at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, KSC. Following an on-time liftoff, Cargo Dragon rendezvoused and docked with the forward port on the Harmony module of the International Space Station, ISS, on Sunday, November 27. The spacecraft will resupply the Expedition 68 crew aboard the station and is carrying a second pair of ISS Rollout Solar Arrays or IROSAs inside the unpressurized trunk of the spacecraft. The two IROSAs will eventually be installed on the exterior of the ISS during spacewalks currently scheduled for late November and early December. The Falcon 9 booster supporting this mission was B-1076-1, which was launching on its first flight. Following the launch, it landed on the autonomous spaceport drone ship named Just Read the Instructions downrange of KSC in the Atlantic Ocean. The booster was different from other SpaceX boosters as it featured fewer SpaceX logos and no Falcon 9 markings, which is normal for Falcon Heavy side cores, which is a departure from the standard Falcon 9 livery. B-1076 will be used as a Falcon Heavy side booster core later on. The launch on November 26 at LC-39A comes 10 days after NASA's Space Launch System launched on its maiden flight from LC-39B on the Artemis 1 mission. This marked the closest back-to-back launches from both pads combined at Launch Complex 39. The closest back-to-back launch from the complex occurred in 1973, when the Skylab space station launched atop the final Saturn V rocket from LC-39A on May 14, 1973. The first crew of Skylab then launched atop a Saturn 1B rocket at LC-39B 11 days later on May 25, 1973. The Falcon 9 rocket was then rotated from horizontal to vertical on the launch pad. Before launch, cargo loading inside of Dragon occurred. This activity utilizes the Crew Access Arm on the Shuttle-era Fixed Service Structure or FSS. The main portion of the countdown began at the T35-minute mark with the beginning of the launch autosequence. At the same point in the countdown, fueling operations commenced on the launch vehicle with the loading of RP-1 kerosene on both the first and second stages of Falcon 9. At around the same time that RP-1 began to flow into the launch vehicle, liquid oxygen, or LOX, will also began flowing into the first stage. 3 seconds before launch, the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage of the Falcon 9 ignited. The ignition of these engines occurred with igniter fluid called TTEB and appears as a bright green flash. Falcon 9 next rolled to the proper launch azimuth to take it to a 51.6-degree inclined orbit, enabling it to rendezvous with the ISS. The vehicle then pitched downrange of KSC as it heads over the Atlantic Ocean. At the end of the first stage flight, the 9 Merlin 1D engines shut down and the second stage separated. Following this, the single Merlin MVAC engine on the second stage ignited as Dragon continued to ascend to orbit. The first stage then conducted a flip maneuver using cold gas thrusters to flip the stage 180 degrees. 4 grid fins on the booster then deployed. As it headed into the denser part of the atmosphere, the grid fins on B-1076 activated to steer the vehicle. At about the same time, the single MVAC engine on the second stage shut down, inserting Dragon into orbit. Soon after, Dragon separated and continued on its own on its way to the ISS.